Imagine a garage so iconic. Its silence felt like a national moment of mourning. The doors of Boyd Coddington's legendary hot rod workshop slammed shut, and with them, the golden age of custom car design seemed to pause in midair. Whispers started. Rumors spread. What had happened inside? Why did one of the most innovative and influential car builders in history vanish from his empire overnight? This isn't just the story of a man who built beautiful machines. It's the story of a visionary whose fingerprints are etched into the very DNA of modern hot rodding. Boyd Coddington wasn't just a car guy. He was an artist, an inventor, and a mentor whose influence shaped an entire generation of custom builders. But what happens when that creative force suddenly disappears? When the roar of the engines, the whir of machines, and the laughter of craftsmen fades into an eerie silence? What secrets lie dormant behind those locked doors? What was found when they were finally cracked open? Boyd's garage was more than a workplace. It was a sanctuary of design, a living museum of horsepower and imagination. Each build told a story. Every project, a piece of American automotive history. And yet in the blink of an eye, it all stopped. His death stunned an industry, his empire folded, and his legacy was suddenly cast in shadow. In this video, we're going deeper than ever before. We'll follow Boyd's journey from humble beginnings in rural Idaho to revolutionizing the custom car world from his California shop. We'll reveal how he reshaped the hot rod scene with smooth lines, billet aluminum, and boundless creativity. We'll uncover the unfinished masterpieces left behind, projects filled with potential, frozen in time. We'll also explore the human side, the drama, the heartbreak, and the controversy that came with genius. The legal issues, the business challenges, the family dynamics, everything that made Boyd's story not just inspiring, but deeply real. And we'll ask the big questions. Why did Boyd's empire collapse so quickly? What really happened in those final months? And who stepped up to carry the torch when the king of hot rods took his final ride? This story isn't just about cars. It's about legacy, ambition, and the thin line between brilliance and burnout. Whether you're a gearhead, a designer, or simply curious about one of the most fascinating figures in automotive history, what we're about to uncover will surprise you. Stick around, because what we found might just change how you see Boyd Coddington forever. Before the sleek lines and shiny chrome, before the fame and the cameras, Boyd Coddington was just a kid from rural Idaho with a wrench in one hand and a dream in his head. Raised in an environment where necessity drove creativity, Boyd learned to make things work with what was available. There were no glossy showrooms or high-end tools, just grit, ingenuity, and a burning curiosity for anything on wheels. In the quiet towns of Idaho, young Boyd developed a hands-on understanding of machinery. It wasn't glamour that drove him, it was function. Fixing tractors, tuning engines, repurposing parts. This was how he began crafting his future. The post-war hot rod movement was gaining steam across America, and Boyd felt the magnetic pull of this emerging culture. These weren't just cars. They were rolling symbols of freedom and rebellion, and he wanted in. By the late 1960s, Boyd knew he had to be where the action was. He packed up and moved to Southern California, the epicenter of custom car culture. But success didn't come overnight. His first job in California? A machinist at Disneyland. It was a strategic move. The steady paycheck from the Magic Kingdom funded his true passion, building hot rods in his backyard garage in Cyprus. This humble home shop quickly became a crucible of innovation. While working full-time, Boyd spent every spare moment crafting custom rides. He was learning, refining, evolving, and most importantly, he was creating something entirely new. His dedication paid off. He wasn't just building hot rods, he was redefining what they could be. His early builds featured smoother lines, integrated designs, and a fluidity that caught eyes. This was the birth of what would become known as the Boyd look. Unlike traditional hot rods that looked like stitched-together relics, Boyd's cars felt cohesive and futuristic. They weren't just fast, they were elegant, sculptural, and technically refined. This design language, grounded in both engineering precision and artistic vision, was light years ahead of its time. As the buzz around his builds grew, so did Boyd's reputation. He wasn't just another guy in a garage anymore. He was a rising star. What set him apart wasn't just his skill, but his relentless pursuit of perfection and a vision for what the future of custom cars could be. Boyd Coddington had officially entered the fast lane, and he wasn't slowing down. Boyd Coddington didn't just build hot rods, he built a movement. Once his reputation caught fire, there was no looking back. And with fame came expectations. But Boyd didn't just meet them, he obliterated them. One of his most defining innovations was his use of billet aluminum. In the 1980s, frustrated by the lack of quality custom parts, Boyd and his close collaborator, Lil John Butera, began crafting components from solid blocks of aluminum, known as billets. What began with side mirrors and knobs quickly evolved into entire wheels, chassis pieces, and intricate trim, each one custom machined with surgical precision. These weren't just car parts, they were sculptures in metal. This approach marked a radical departure from the hot rodding norms of the time. Builders traditionally modified off-the-shelf parts to suit their needs. Boyd flipped that model. He fabricated parts from scratch, tailored specifically for each build. It wasn't just about customization anymore. It was about total control. And with that control came a level of artistry the industry hadn't seen before. It didn't take long for the Boyd look to become a design phenomenon. His builds were fluid, unified, and distinctly modern. Gone were the awkward combinations of old bodies on new frames. In their place, cars that looked like they were carved from a single piece of steel. Everything fit. Every line had a purpose. Every curve flowed with intention. This design language brought him recognition and hardware. Boyd's creations began racking up wins, including an unmatched 7 America's Most Beautiful Roadster awards at the prestigious Grand National Roadster Show. But Boyd's ambition didn't stop with awards. He was building an empire. In 1978, he officially opened his shop, Hot Rods by Boyd. It was more than a workshop. It was a proving ground for the future of car culture. From this shop came not only legendary cars, but a booming wheel business. Boyd introduced the first made-to-order custom wheel line, which exploded in popularity. His wheels were so coveted, they became a status symbol not just among hot rodders, but across the automotive world. What made Boyd different wasn't just his skill, but his vision. He saw a future where hot rods weren't just back-alley builds. They were luxury items, celebrated and collected like fine art. He brought elegance into a space that had long been defined by grease and grit. And people noticed. He elevated the role of a builder to that of a designer. Boyd's name began appearing in lifestyle magazines, car shows, and pop culture. His builds inspired admiration from both traditional car lovers and design aficionados alike. And as the spotlight grew, Boyd welcomed it, knowing that visibility was a tool to spread his vision even further. As Boyd's influence expanded, so did his reach. Talented builders flocked to his shop hoping to learn from the best. Among them, Chip Foose, Jesse James, and a generation of young fabricators who would go on to shape the next era of custom car culture. Boyd wasn't just making cars. He was making legends. His garage became a talent incubator. The work was demanding. The standards were sky-high, but the education was priceless. Boyd taught discipline, attention to detail, and the importance of innovation. He didn't tolerate mediocrity, and his protege absorbed that ethos like gospel. Boyd's empire was booming, and his name was everywhere, from TV shows to magazines to garages around the world. This wasn't just the peak of his success, it was the moment he cemented his legacy. He had changed the game, and the game would never be the same again. At the height of his success, Boyd Coddington was seemingly unstoppable. His name had become synonymous with custom car perfection, and his shop was producing award-winning hot rods and industry-defining wheels. But in early 2008, the hum of welders and the spark of grinders inside Hot Rods by Boyd came to a sudden and heartbreaking halt. On February 27, 2008, the world lost a visionary. Boyd Coddington passed away unexpectedly at the age of 63 due to complications from surgery related to a perforated colon, further exacerbated by diabetes, sepsis, and kidney failure. The news spread like wildfire through the automotive community. Tributes poured in. Fans, builders, and even rivals paused to honor the man who had forever changed custom car culture. His passing hit especially hard because just days earlier, his prognosis was hopeful. Friends and family believed he would recover. Instead, the industry was left stunned, trying to comprehend the loss of a man who had not only built masterpieces, but mentored the very people who would define the next era. The contrast between hopeful anticipation and sudden loss made the news all the more devastating. Almost immediately, the future of Hot Rods by Boyd came into question. The energy that Boyd brought, his eye for detail, his relentless drive, his leadership, could not be replaced. His wife, Jo Coddington, attempted to keep operations running with the help of the remaining crew. The wheel business, which had grown into a lucrative enterprise, held on. But the hot rod shop, the soul of Boyd's legacy, couldn't survive without its heart. Just 4 months after Boyd's passing, on June 20th, 2008, the shop officially shut its doors. It wasn't just the end of a business, it felt like the lights going out on an era. The once vibrant space that had birthed automotive legends became a monument to what had been and what would never be again. Tools were left untouched, projects sat half-finished, the silence inside was deafening. The closure also triggered a ripple effect in the industry. Builders who had trained under Boyd began to scatter, many launching their own ventures. The shop's closure didn't mark the end of Boyd's influence, it signaled its transformation. The techniques, standards, and design philosophy he championed lived on through the hands of his protégés, ensuring his spirit endured in garages far beyond his own. The reality series American Hot Rod, which had brought millions of viewers into Boyd's garage, also ended with his death. Producers knew that without Boyd, the show had lost its anchor. Viewers had tuned in not just for the cars, but for Boyd's presence, his passion, his tension, his unmatched commitment to excellence. His death left a hole that couldn't be filled. But in many ways, it also magnified his legacy. His absence made it clearer than ever just how much he had shaped the industry. Boyd Coddington wasn't just a hot rod builder, he was a cultural force. And even in death, he continued to drive the future of custom cars forward. After the lights dimmed and the doors to Hot Rods by Boyd were locked for good, a strange kind of silence filled the space. It wasn't just any garage. It was a place where legends were born, a cathedral of chrome and craftsmanship. And yet, when the public finally got a peek inside, what they found wasn't just tools and metal. It was a treasure trove of dreams left unfinished. The shop looked as if Boyd had simply stepped out for lunch and never returned. Half-built hot rods sat quietly on lifts. Custom parts were scattered across workbenches, tagged and ready for installation. Projects were paused mid-creation, welding torches set aside, blueprints still taped to walls. It felt frozen in time, a glimpse into the mind of a master still, mid-thought. Among the most haunting discoveries were the unfinished builds, many of which hinted at some of Boyd's boldest ideas yet. One of the most talked about was the French Connection Roadster, a sweeping Delahaye-inspired 1938 Lincoln powered by a massive 12 8-liter Italian Marine V12 engine. It was ambitious, exotic, and unlike anything else on the road. Though completed by Boyd's team during his final hospital stay, the car stood as a ghostly masterpiece, his last dream realized on the edge of life. Another standout was a trio of 1940 Ford Customs, a sleek coupe, a convertible, and a classic Woody wagon. All were in various stages of fabrication, resting on custom frames with mechanical upgrades already in place. These weren't just projects. They were historical artifacts in progress. Fans and collectors speculated, should they be completed or preserved exactly as Boyd left them? Even more haunting were the personal touches left behind. Handwritten notes, sketches on napkins, and fabrication mock-ups provided a vivid window into Boyd's creative process. These small remnants offered insight into his genius and a deep sense of loss for what might have been. The unfinished cars were more than works in progress. They were symbols of Boyd's relentless creativity, his refusal to ever stop innovating. Even in his final days, his garage was alive with possibility. The sheer number and scale of these projects showed just how far ahead Boyd was thinking. And perhaps most powerfully, they asked an emotional question. When a legend leaves behind an incomplete vision, who has the right or the ability to finish it? That dilemma sparked passionate debates in the car community. These weren't just builds. They were Boyd's final messages, carved in metal, waiting to be completed or left as eternal testaments to a genius taken too soon. With the shop closed and the machines quiet, there came an inevitable next step, the liquidation. Boyd Coddington's legendary garage, once a factory of dreams, now became the site of one of the most emotional automotive auctions in history. It wasn't just about selling off tools and cars. It was about preserving a legacy, one piece at a time. Buyers came from across the country, not just to acquire rare parts or unfinished cars, but to hold on to a tangible piece of Boyd's genius. There were body panels, handwritten sketches, limited edition memorabilia, and even Hot Wheels models based on Boyd's most iconic builds. Everything had a story, and everything carried his touch. For those who had followed Boyd's career for decades, this wasn't a shopping trip. It was a pilgrimage. Collectors, fans, and fellow builders came together not just to bid, but to pay their respects. Every hammer strike at the auction was, like a heartbeat of the industry remembering its hero. But the centerpiece of the auction was the collection of unfinished vehicles. Even incomplete, these builds commanded attention and massive bids. The French Connection Roadster, a one-of-a-kind piece that blended European elegance with American muscle, was the crown jewel. Finished in Boyd's final days, it represented both a pinnacle and an end. Its eventual sale turned heads not only for its price tag, but for what it symbolized: the last breath of a legend. Equally compelling were the 1940 Ford Customs, the Pass, Coupe, Convertible, and Woody. Still in raw form, these cars drew intense interest. Builders saw potential. Collectors saw history. Some of these vehicles were eventually completed by other high-end shops, including Hot Rod Investments and Squeeg's Customs, working closely with Boyd's family to honor his original vision. One of the most memorable transformations was the 40 Ford pickup. Initially a rolling chassis with mocked-up bodywork, it was meticulously finished with a Roush 427 crate engine, Tremec 5-speed, and custom interior. At Barrett-Jackson in 2015, it sold for a jaw-dropping $374,000. These weren't just high-dollar sales. They were tributes. Each car that crossed the auction block carried a part of Boyd's DNA. His designs, his materials, even his intent could be felt in every inch of metal. The auctions made one thing abundantly clear. Boyd Coddington's influence hadn't diminished. In fact, the value of his unfinished dreams proved just how much the world still revered his artistry. His shop may have closed, but his legend had only just begun its second life, on the open road and in collectors' hearts. Even legends aren't immune to controversy. Behind Boyd Coddington's brilliance was a complex and sometimes turbulent reality that challenged the very image he built. In 2005, Boyd found himself at the center of a legal firestorm. He pleaded guilty to fraudulently registering custom-built vehicles as antique cars in an effort to avoid California's strict emissions regulations and vehicle taxes. For a man who was celebrated for pushing boundaries in design, this was a different kind of boundary altogether. The incident sparked debate in the automotive community. Was this a necessary workaround in an over-regulated system, or a betrayal of the ethical standards he helped establish? The scandal raised broader questions about authenticity. Boyd's cars were entirely custom, so custom, in fact, that many argued they defied traditional classification. Were they still vintage, or something new entirely? The Ship of Theseus dilemma played out in real time as lawmakers and enthusiasts alike struggled to define what his builds really were. But legal woes weren't the only shadow over Boyd's legacy. His reality show, American Hot Rod, gave fans a front-row seat to his creative process, but also revealed his demanding leadership style. Viewers saw moments of tension, firings, and conflict. To some, he appeared as a harsh taskmaster, more focused on deadlines than camaraderie. Was this just the pressure of perfection, or a glimpse into a flawed side of a genius? Either way, the image painted on screen was far more complicated than the glossy pages of car magazines, and it forced fans to reconcile the beauty of his work with the challenges of the man behind it. In the end, Boyd Coddington wasn't just a legend because of his success. He was human. And like all icons, his story was made richer by the complexity that came with it. Boyd Coddington's physical presence may be gone, but his legacy rolls on stronger than ever. His shop may have shut its doors, but his ideas, his techniques, and his unmistakable design philosophy continue to shape the world of custom cars to this day. The Boyd look, defined by smooth, seamless body lines, integrated engineering, and an artist's eye for detail, is still the gold standard in hot rodding. Even decades after its introduction, builders across the globe continue to draw inspiration from Boyd's style. It's more than a trend. It's a foundation, a design language that still speaks to creativity, elegance, and precision. His pioneering use of billet aluminum didn't just change how parts were made, it redefined what custom could mean. Boyd didn't wait for the industry to catch up. He forged ahead. Today, billet components are an industry staple, synonymous with high-quality craftsmanship and aesthetic cohesion. And it all started with Boyd's refusal to accept limitations. But perhaps his most lasting impact wasn't mechanical, it was human. Boyd's shop was a launchpad for talent. Chip Foose, Jesse James, and countless others began their careers under his demanding, detail-obsessed mentorship. They didn't just learn how to build, they learned how to innovate, how to lead, and how to push beyond what was expected. Boyd's legacy also lives on through his family. His son, Chris Coddington, continues to manufacture high-end custom wheels under the HRBB brand, maintaining the standards his father set and carrying the Coddington name forward into the next generation. Meanwhile, Boyd Jr. remains a respected figure in preserving and sharing his father's contributions to automotive history. Today, Boyd's cars are celebrated not only at car shows and auctions, but also in museums, books, and collector circles. They're more than vehicles. They're artifacts of American culture. Each one tells a story of artistry, precision, and passion, and their continued relevance proves that Boyd's vision was not just ahead of its time, it was timeless. In the end, Boyd Coddington didn't just build cars, he built a legacy, one that continues to inspire, influence, and ignite imaginations. The man is gone, but the roar of his engine still echoes across the custom car world. And maybe that's the greatest legacy of all. Not what Boyd made with his hands, but what he left behind in the hearts and garages of those who follow his path.